Well, it's been a day of many announcements, of course, with the press conference this morning, and hard after that, in the House of Keys, the Treasury Minister Alf Cannan took to his feet to explain more about what was going to be put in place by the government for people who will be affected by the 3-week lockdown, which of course could be longer. Mr Cannan now joins us. A few tweaks to the original schemes, and over to you if you want to explain what you've been doing.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, well, I mean, the original schemes, the three core schemes that we've been using, the salary support, the MIRA, the Manx Earnings Replacement Allowance, and the Coronavirus Business Support Scheme have all been reactivated now for all those businesses who are affected by this and are eligible. And the schemes will be open in the next couple of days for applications. The key tweak or change that we have made now is we've increased the salary support amount from £280 per week to £310 per week. And the MIRA has increased from £200 a week to £230 a week.
Is that following feedback that it wasn't enough, or are you being more generous because our reserves are okay? I mean, how's this being played out?
No, I think we've considered carefully the impact of a second lockdown or second circuit breaker in such close proximity to the January circuit breaker. I think there was clear evidence to us that there's a number of individuals who are potentially finding it hard to recover or taking some weeks to recover from these circuit breaks. And I think that on balance, we felt that we needed to put a little bit more impetus into these support schemes to try and help those who potentially on low to middle incomes who may be impacted more seriously than perhaps we may have envisaged when we first put these schemes in place.
And if you've got money from these schemes before, is it a very simple task this time to get back on it, or do you have to go through the whole process of form filling again?
Well, everybody still has to apply, but actually the application process is relatively simple. It's all online. Anybody who's been through this process, and most people who will be applying now will have been through this process. It will be the third time they'll have been through it. Will find that it is actually a relatively simple process to go through.
And we talked last time about people who had missed out, they'd fallen between the cracks, and you were looking at that. Have you revised any of those categories this time?
Well, I think during this whole process, and each time we've had a circuit breaker, look, we've sought to refine where we felt there have been gaps. Look, unfortunately, in some certain circumstances, we don't always get the full story out into the public, because dealing with individuals clearly and their own personal tax and national insurance records, occasionally people don't get in for various reasons. It's very, very small in those cases, and normally we do try and find a solution for them, in particularly if they've got more difficult financial circumstances surrounding their needs.
And besides, away from those schemes, you in the past have been sympathetic to VAT returns and those sort of things. Again, is that the same case?
Well, we did that last year, Paul. I think at that stage we were looking at a much longer period. If you remember, the first circuit break or lockdown started approximately about the 23rd, 24th of March and almost ran through to the end of May, beginning of June. And this is very much a 21-day. The intention is 21 days, as was the last one, 21 days. Clearly, there's a potentially quite serious and significant impact from delaying VAT returns in the way that we did the first time. I think it was appropriate to do it then. It gave quite a lot of business support. But I think the mechanisms that we have in place, the salary support scheme, the MIRA, the coronavirus business support, do provide that sort of short-term impetus that I think will keep businesses going, will provide that support mechanism to keep people in jobs, and will help them if, in fact, they can't earn because for whatever reason they're either on 0 hours or they're laid off as a result of this short-term lockdown.
One difference, of course, construction can go on subject to social distancing, so that must be saving you a bit of money, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically saying to the construction industry, the schemes are still open to them if they are impacted for whatever reason. So if, for example, they are working on a construction site indoors where they cannot now operate safely, then they can look to claim their normal support schemes, or that they are impacted because of, for example, workers who are off sick, and therefore means they cannot sort of reach that level of productivity and reach that level of earnings. So, look, we're not discounting anybody, but we are saying to construction and horticulture, it's there if you need it, and if you don't, please just carry on, obviously, with the work that you're doing.
You touched on there because gardeners last time came up. One single gardener by himself couldn't work. This is now okay, is it? If that's falling into this social distancing rules.
Absolutely. So construction and horticulture, they have to abide by the social distancing rules, work with a mask on. But yeah, absolutely. As long as they're outside and they abide with those rules, then they can carry on working.
Now, this costs, I think, is it 3 weeks last time? Didn't you bill that £20 million? Is that roughly where we'll be looking again at this number?
These are not cheap exercises, Paul. The cost last time was estimated at £20 million. Similarly, this time, there's no reason to doubt that it will be much less. I mean, clearly, we will have hopefully large elements of construction and outside workers still continuing to work. But nevertheless, you can have significant cost attached to these, and of course, you're never actually quite certain that they're going to end on the time. And even if they do, there's always a bit of a runoff period where you're just trying to help people get back on their feet. So I would have thought anywhere 15 to 20 million pounds again for this period. But look, we're ready for that. We had made everybody aware in the budget that we had the contingency funds available, that we were ready for a setback of this nature. Clearly, these figures are all totting up in terms of the public finances, but we're still in a healthy position. But nevertheless, like everybody else, I want this now. I hope to be somewhere towards the last time that we go into this situation. We couldn't afford financially to keep going in and out into these scenarios. And also, we're all aware that this is taking a toll now on not just, the health of the nation and the finances, but also lots of social impacts as well.
And where do you find the money for this one? Which fund is this? NI it comes out of, or one of your contingency funds?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's we cash flow it from contingency, but ultimately the accounting around this predominantly comes from the National Insurance Fund. We've made that perfectly clear all throughout this, that the salary support scheme and the MIRA would be taken out of national insurance.
Finally, how disappointed are you that we're here? Because you do have the finances at your fingertips. To have a third lockdown, and many people think this really should never got this far. You disappointed?
No, I don't think everybody's disappointed. Nobody wants to be in this situation, Paul, but we are. This is where we are. We're acting again. We had the money ready to bring into play if we needed to support people. I think the critical factor now, and where we've got to turn our attention, is working out how that we successfully get through this circuit break as quickly and effectively as possible. And clearly everybody knows the role that they have to play within that. But also we now really need to pay close attention at a pretty rapid pace to what the island's exit strategy now is, with the vaccine rollout now in place, and what levels of vaccination are going to be appropriate really for us to indicate that we can actually start opening up more, and also discuss with the public, I think, and it will have to be a public discussion, it will have to be a public debate about the level that we need of first vaccinations to allow the virus to circulate without a significant impact in the community. And this is going to be the ongoing battle. We all recognize this virus is just not, as we understand it, going to go away, that it is potentially going to be with us for some time to come, that it is potentially going to circulate in the community, even with the levels of vaccinations. There may well still be individuals who fall or succumb to the virus. But look, there's a lot of positivity in the air at the moment, but we've got to do some very serious thinking and discussions about how and when we take the island through to the next stage of this, which is getting out of this period of the circuit break and into a position I hope, where we have more confidence that the numbers who've been vaccinated will give us much, the level of protection that everybody's going to find necessary and acceptable for us to move forward properly.
Well, it's interesting to hear your answer there. So do you think this lockdown had to be a lockdown rather than people who've had the vaccinations and other people who are vulnerable, if they'd kept sheltered and shielding during this whole thing, that the economy could have even gone on?
Well, we have question yet, Paul, and I don't think we were in a position to believe that we had vaccinated enough people to properly protect both the hospital, protect the health service, but protect enough individuals. I think we've only got to the over 70s and vulnerable members in our community. There are still probably significant numbers, or reasonably significant numbers, who potentially are exposed to this. And also, look, the information is positive coming out of the UK in terms of the efficacy of the virus, the protection that it offers. Every day seems to bring much better news. So, the more information, the more data that we can now get on that in the next 2 to 3 weeks is really going to help, I think, with, I hope, perhaps setting more positive targets, or having more positive discussions about how we can actually take the island forward as a community, knowing that the vaccines are protecting us, but also understanding what level of protection is appropriate for us to be able to take more steps forward in terms of opening borders and perhaps encouraging greater economic activity.
Okay. Well, I mean, until we know this is under control, look at Guernsey. I mean, their 3 weeks has carried on and on and on because they haven't. We were lucky last time. How much per week is this going to be hitting you in the finances per week for if everything over this 3 week period?
Well, I think based on what I've said, I mean, it's always difficult to put an exact figure on it. But I mean, if you translate what I said earlier, Paul, that's probably £5 million a week for the support schemes. Clearly, we'll recognise that there might be less pressure this time because construction and outdoor workers will be able to operate and may not necessarily need to be able to, need to access the scheme. So we will see a reduction from that. But yeah, I mean, you can't get away from it. It's relatively expensive. But the important thing I think to focus on now, Paul, is we're in this position. We've got to apply our attention to successfully getting out of it, and we've also got to apply our attentions now quite quickly to working out, what post exit from this circuit break looks like for the island, and also move as quickly as possible towards a position where we are comfortable with the numbers of people vaccinated. And I know I'm sure you've spoken to the health minister about that, but we'll be having those discussions in the Council of Ministers and doubtless with members of Tynwald in the coming weeks. And
Coma meetings pretty well every day at the minute then, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think in these early days, we always meet regularly. We need to understand what exactly is happening, and it's important also for myself, for the Department for Enterprise, for our economic recovery group, just to get a handle, I suppose, on the likelihood of being able to exit from this in reasonably good shape in 21 days, but also. We need to understand, from those meetings, what other impacts might be being felt that perhaps we hadn't planned for. But fingers crossed now, Paul, that everybody is in a position to get through this, certainly in the short term, successfully. The schemes will help individuals financially. They will help businesses financially, and I hope will protect the jobs situation and give people the financial support they need. And we can get out of it in the next sort of 21 days or so, and move on to perhaps to another phase.